The greatest mystery in our skies has just gotten a little bit stranger. Harvard's top scientists say that it could be a nuclear-powered alien craft of all things.
There are some things in space that are beyond our comprehension. We've just learned this the hard way. Comet 3I Atlas, a supposed traveler from a distant star, was initially seen as a scientific marvel. But as it came nearer, its true nature became clear. 4 of our most advanced space telescopes watched together as the object shifted to a menacing blood-red color, a hue that defies our understanding of astrophysics. This was not just a simple discovery. It was an activation. Now the U.S. Space Force is bracing for a situation that until last week was relegated to the realm of science fiction, a red alert in the void. In the silent, vast theater of space, we're accustomed to a specific set of rules. Comets typically glow a ghostly green or blue, asteroids appear a dull gray, and stars burn with a predictable fire. But sometimes things aren't what they seem. On a day that will likely be remembered in classified circles for years to come, those rules were completely shattered. The story begins with 3IATLAS, discovered just last year. It was officially named the third interstellar object ever found, a visitor from another solar system passing through our cosmic backyard. For months, it behaved exactly as expected, a faint, fuzzy blob traveling at an incredible 100,000 mph, growing brighter as it approached the sun. Astronomers worldwide were captivated by it, viewing it as a rare opportunity to study a piece of another star's family. Then, without warning, the change came. The first sign was from the Spitzer Space Telescope, an observatory that views the universe in infrared. It detected a sudden, massive spike in heat from the comet's core, its nucleus. This was unusual but not unheard of, as comets can break apart and release trapped gases. However, what followed was the true shocker. The James Webb Space Telescope, the most powerful observatory ever built, was also watching, and its data arrived minutes later. The scientists couldn't believe their eyes. The coma, the fuzzy atmosphere surrounding the comet, was visibly changing color. The familiar cyan and green glow caused by the sun's interaction with diatomic carbon gas was fading away. It was being replaced by a deep, pulsating crimson red. A color like that is a massive red flag in astronomy. Red can signify many things: the presence of complex organic molecules called tholins or light being stretched out from a fast-moving object. But this was different. The shade was too pure and too uniform. It looked less like a natural phenomenon and more like a switch had been flipped. To confirm it wasn't a sensor error, observatories were scrambled. The legendary Hubble Space Telescope was redirected, and its sharp vision confirmed Webb's data. Even the retired Kepler telescope in its extended mission was used to measure the light curve. The conclusion was the same across 4 of our top instruments. 3IATLAS was now a hostile, blood-red object shining with its own light, not just reflecting the sun's. What they don't tell you is that the light wasn't steady. It was pulsing in a complex, repeating rhythm, almost like a heartbeat that pulsed once every 84.6 seconds. It was a signal. The scientific community officially entered a state of controlled panic. This was no longer a comet. A comet is a dirty snowball. This was something else entirely, just masquerading as a comet. It had utilized the sun's energy to power up, shed its disguise, and begin broadcasting something. The data was immediately flagged and sent up a chain of command that goes well beyond NASA. It landed on the desks of a very specific group of people at Vandenberg Space Force Base. Because when an object from another star system suddenly turns on a giant red pulsating light, it ceases to be a mere scientific curiosity. It becomes a matter of national security, not a comet. The Icarus Protocol was activated. Once the data was verified, the situation changed completely. This was no longer a job for astronomers in tweed jackets. This was a job for military analysts and code breakers. The United States Space Force, the newest branch of our armed forces, was established for exactly this kind of scenario, a potential threat from beyond Earth. Within hours, a classified task force was created, codenamed Project Icarus. Their single mission was to determine what 3IATLAS was what it wanted, and if it posed a threat. The first order of business was to analyze the pulse. That rhythmic 84.6-second beat was simply too perfect to be natural. Natural objects in space tumble and spin, but this was as regular as a clock. Analysts from the National Security Agency (NSA) were brought in. They're the best code breakers on the planet, but they typically work with emails and phone calls. Now they were trying to find a pattern in the light from a transformed comet, hundreds of millions of miles away. They quickly discovered the pulse wasn't just a simple on-off beat. Within each pulse of red light were trillions of smaller, faster fluctuations, a complex stream of information buried inside the main signal. It was like finding a whole library hidden within a single word. The problem was they had no way to translate it. It was a language written in a form of physics they were only just beginning to grasp. While the code breakers worked, the Space Force was busy pointing every sensor they had at the object. This included the Space Surveillance Network, a global system of telescopes and radars designed to track satellites and space debris. They were trying to get a better look at 3IATLAS, wanting to know its precise size, shape, and composition. The initial readings were just as confusing as the color. The object was about 2 miles long and shaped like a long, thin shard of glass. But the radar returns made no sense. At times, the object seemed completely radar-absorbent, like a stealth bomber. At other times, it reflected radar signals with an impossible intensity. The thing nobody is telling you is what the heat signature revealed. While the outer shell glowed red, the object's core remained at a temperature just 3 degrees above absolute zero. That's 454 degrees USSF. This is a scientific impossibility. You can't have something generating so much light and energy on its surface while its core is near the coldest temperature possible in the universe. It completely defies the laws of thermodynamics. It was like finding a bonfire that was frozen solid in the middle. This single piece of data was the most terrifying of all. It meant the object was using a form of technology completely unknown to us. It wasn't just a more advanced version of our own tech. It was something else entirely built on a different understanding of physics. This is why the alert level was raised. This wasn't just an object sending a signal. This was an object that could manipulate energy and matter in ways we simply couldn't comprehend. The question was no longer just, what is it saying? It was now, what can it do, the Pentagon's longest gaze. With the world's intelligence agencies completely baffled by the signal, Project Icarus changed its focus from decoding to defense. The mission was no longer about understanding the message, but rather about preparing for the messenger. The first and most crucial question was its trajectory. Where was 3IATLAS headed? Initial projections showed it would swing around the sun and then be flung back into interstellar space, never to return. But this was no longer a predictable chunk of rock and ice. This was an object under intelligent control. And what many people don't realize is that even a slight change in its path could have huge consequences. Using the combined power of the world's largest radio telescopes, the Space Force began a constant 24/7 monitoring campaign. They were looking for any sign of a course correction, any tiny puff from a thruster that would indicate the object was steering itself. For weeks, there was nothing. It stayed on its original comet-like path. Some in the Pentagon began to relax, thinking maybe this was all just a strange natural phenomenon after all. Maybe it was just a light show. But the veterans in the USSF knew better. In warfare, you don't reveal your hand until you must. And if this object was a probe or something more, it wouldn't make a move until it was ready. Then it happened. It was a change so small it was nearly missed. The object passed through the orbit of Mars, and as it did, it failed to slow down as much as it should have. The gravity of Mars should have pulled on it, tugging on its trajectory by a small but measurable amount. It didn't. It was as if the gravity of an entire planet meant nothing to it. For an object 2 miles long, this was a jaw-dropping revelation. It meant 3IATLAS had some kind of internal drive, a way of counteracting gravity itself. It was actively resisting the pull of the planets. This was the final proof they needed. This was an artificial object, a ship, a probe, something with a purpose. The mood inside Project Icarus shifted from one of tense observation to grave concern. They were now dealing with a technology that could defy gravity. Our most advanced rockets are still just controlled explosions. We are like cavemen throwing spears, while this thing was a ghost that could walk through walls. The alert was quietly escalated. Special satellite teams were activated, tasked with developing defensive strategies. How do you stop something that gravity can't touch? How do you defend against a technology you can't even begin to understand? The thing nobody tells you is that at this point, the mission expanded. The USSF began looking not just at 3IATLAS, but also at what was happening here on Earth. Were there any other strange signals, any unusual UAP sightings? They were operating under a terrifying new assumption. Atlas might not be alone. It might just be the scout, facing the unknown. For anyone trying to wrap their head around this, it can feel like a story straight out of Hollywood. A mysterious object from another star, a strange signal, a secret military task force. It's easy to dismiss it. But the thing is, this isn't about belief, it's about data. It's about 4 of our most reliable scientific instruments all telling us the same impossible story. It's about radar and thermal readings that break the known laws of physics. We are in a new world now, whether we're ready for it or not. The trajectory of 3IATLAS is still taking it toward its closest approach to the Sun. After that, it will head back out into the void. But no one in Project Icarus believes it will just leave quietly. Are we missing a key detail that would explain all of this in a simple, natural way? Maybe. Scientists are desperately searching for one. But with every passing hour, that possibility seems less and less likely. We are faced with a conclusion that is as humbling as it is terrifying. Someone or something sent a probe into our solar system, a probe that is far beyond our technology. It traveled for what could be thousands or even millions of years. And now that it is here, it has turned on a light, announcing its presence. This forces us to ask the big question, why? If a civilization has the technology to build a gravity-defying, self-illuminating probe, they surely also have the technology to keep it hidden. They could have slipped through our system completely undetected. But they chose not to. They changed the object to a hostile, impossible color. They started broadcasting a complex, pulsing signal. This was not an accident. This was a deliberate act. Inside Project Icarus, the debate is no longer about what it is, but why it's here. And some truly wild theories are now being treated with deadly seriousness. One school of thought, the lighthouse theory, suggests the message isn't even for us. In this scenario, 3IATLAS is an ancient warning beacon, and our solar system is about to drift into a dangerous region of the galaxy. Or perhaps a different unseen threat is approaching. The red light isn't hostile to us. It's a galactic danger sign, a cosmic road closed signal that has just been activated. We're just the bystanders who happen to live by the lighthouse. An even darker theory gaining traction is the harbinger theory. This suggests the object is a sophisticated terraforming machine, or a seed ship. The sudden energy spike and color change could be the start of its primary function, releasing clouds of microscopic self-replicating machines designed to alter our atmosphere, our oceans, or our biology to pave the way for a future colonization. The hostile red glow in this case would be the color of our world beginning to change. Then there's the most unsettling theory of all, the litmus test. Proponents of this idea believe the object's creators are watching us right now. The entire event, the disguise as a comet, the dramatic color change, the indecipherable signal is a carefully crafted psychological test. They want to see how we react to something completely outside our comprehension. Do we respond with fear and aggression? Is this a first contact scenario, or the prelude to something we're not prepared for? Tell us what you think in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates on this developing story.